In 2009, Albuquerque International Airport celebrated its 70th anniversary. Its 70-year history is really the story of 4 airports: Oxnard Field, Western Air Express Airport on the west side, Albuquerque International Airport, and Kirtland Air Force Base. The backdrop here, illustrating changes over time, is the Albuquerque Tricentennial History and Cultural Timeline. At 5,000 feet above sea level, Albuquerque is a high desert city situated in New Mexico's Rio Grande Valley at the foot of the Sandia Mountains. As one of the oldest cities in America, the area has been home to many diverse cultures for over 1,000 years. In 1903, the Wright brothers create powered flight. This is 9 years before New Mexico becomes a state in 1912. By 1913, occasional pilots are using a simple landing strip at the east end of the University of New Mexico campus. In 1928, 2 Santa Fe Railroad employees, Frank G. Speakman and William L. Franklin, build a private airport in Albuquerque. Using equipment borrowed from the city, they grade 2 runways on East Mesa, 4 miles from downtown, and install 2 gravity-fed fuel tanks. In the 10 years from 1920 to 1930, the city grew from just over 15,000 people to over 26,000 people. Soon, other individuals and promoters see Albuquerque as a crossroads location for southwestern air traffic. James G. Oxnard, a New York air transportation promoter, buys Franklin's interest, expands the facility to 480 acres, renames it Oxnard Field, and adds an administration building with a restaurant and a hangar. The restaurant, the Airport Inn, is a popular dining establishment for many years. When telephone service comes to Albuquerque, residents learn it is considered long distance to call the airport. Oxnard Field is served by 2 competing airlines, Western Air Express and Transcontinental Air Transport, or TAT, that provide mail and cargo service between the Midwest and California. But pilots are very uneasy with the nearness of the Sandia Mountains, and a year later, in 1929, Western Air builds a facility on the city's west side, bounded by Coors, Unser, Central, and I-40, and names it Western Air Express Airport. In May 1929, Western Air Express adds passenger service to Los Angeles to their existing cargo and mail service with this Ford Trimotor Fokker aircraft. Later that year, TAT and Western Air merged to form Trans World Airlines, or TWA, and all commercial service moves to the West Mesa Airport. That same year, Charles Lindbergh makes one of many stops in Albuquerque, shown here with Mayor Clyde Tingley. A year later, in 1930, TWA begins offering 2 flights a day from the West Side Airport. The 1930s brings the Great U.S. Depression, repeal of Prohibition, complete paving of Route 66 from Chicago to Los Angeles through Albuquerque, and an 8-year drought, which creates the Great Dust Bowl and huge migrations to the Southwest and California. Around 1935, the city begins discussing building a new public airport using Federal Works Projects Administration, or WPA, money. And on February 28, 1937, now Governor Clyde Tingley breaks ground for the project. TWA and Continental Airlines continue operating out of the West Mesa Airport until Albuquerque Municipal Airport opens in 1939. It opens with 2 paved runways, a Pueblo-style terminal building designed by Ernest Blumenthal, and a massive hangar designed to accommodate the new Boeing 307 Stratoliner, the first commercial plane with a pressurized cabin. Oxnard Field continues alongside as a private venture. Wyoming Boulevard and Ridgecrest Drive are developed as airport access roads. By 1939, Albuquerque's population grows to 35,000, and Oxnard Field is used by World War II pilots for refueling and maintenance. In April of 1941, a lone B-18 bomber lands on the north-south runway with 5 pilots aboard, marking the official opening of the Albuquerque Army Air Base to train bomber crews. At Municipal Airport, Continental Airline begins daily flights. The federal government builds 2 new runways and additional facilities using additional WPA funds and employing thousands of New Mexico residents. In 1942, Albuquerque Army Air Base is renamed Kirtland Army Airfield for one of the Army's earliest aviation pioneers, Colonel Roy C. Kirtland. In 1945, Kirtland becomes a B-29 training base. Los Alamos Labs' Z Division begins Albuquerque operations, and Kirtland test flight operations support the Manhattan Atomic Bomb Project. A year later, in 1946, Kirtland's vast lands and dry climate make it perfect for storing retired World War II aircraft. In 1947, the Army Air Corps becomes the U.S. Air Force, and Kirtland is renamed an Air Force Base. Z Division will become Sandia Corporation and later Sandia National Laboratories. By 1950, Albuquerque's population nearly triples to 96,815. Growth brings the municipal airport new buildings, new hangars, and a new east-west runway. In 1955, tragedy strikes. TWA Flight 260 crashes into Sandia Peak, taking 16 lives and leaving crash debris that can still be seen from the tram on its travel to Sandia Peak. By 1960, Albuquerque's population doubles to over 200,000, and the city finds itself with the highest number of PhDs per capita in the country. In 1962, President John F. Kennedy visits Sandia Labs for a weapons briefing. In 1965, construction is completed on a new terminal named the Albuquerque Sunport, with the prediction that its 8 gates will meet all the needs for 22 years through 1985. 4 years later, in 1967, West Mesa Airport closes operations. In 1971, with the addition of international flights and U.S. Customs Service, Sunport is renamed Albuquerque International. And 1 year later, in 1972, the first Kodak Albuquerque International Balloon Festival is held with 16 hot air balloons. By 1973, 12 years sooner than predicted, a further addition to the airport is needed to accommodate growth. By 1988, the old original terminal has been restored and is added to the National Register of Historic Places. By 1989, another $120 million airport expansion is completed, growing the airport to 19 gates with room for 10 additional gates. By 1990, Albuquerque's population has grown to 384,915. And in 2009, Albuquerque International Airport proudly celebrated its 70th year of service to Albuquerque, with a 3-level passenger terminal, 2 concourses with 23 gates, and 500 flight operations a day. Happy 70th birthday, ABQ!